Since discovering the infidelity, I've been reduced to a husk of a human being. Story 1. Rant. I am a husk of a human being since I found out about the infidelity. A year ago, I discovered that my girlfriend of 5 years, whom I believed would be my wife and whom I adored, had been cheating on me. I acquired the evidence entirely by chance. That day, the chaos and unpredictability of the cosmos worked in my favor, if only for a little period. But once I saw it, it was unmistakable what had been going on. For months, she had been cheating on me with different guys, and this is exactly what I had unequivocal confirmation of. There was undoubtedly more than I will ever know. That was a day I'll never forget. I'll never forget how I felt. As I received message after message, the blood in my body became ice cold, each one confirming that my whole world was going to come tumbling down around me. In my mind, my whole view on my relationship started to twist. What I had previously thought did not match what I was now witnessing. It seemed as though reality itself was collapsing. That day, a part of me perished and will never return. I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or a terrible thing. I suppose only time will tell. After a few hours, I gathered my courage and resolved to face her. Before I played my hand, I offered her one final unprompted opportunity to confess the truth. I was anxious not to have to do that. Even after reading and seeing everything, things that shattered my whole self-esteem in a matter of minutes, I still wanted to think she would at the very least come clean about it all without me presenting her evidence. I now realized that I was utterly insane at the time. How could I expect someone as deceitful, greedy, cowardly, and dishonest as her to tell me the truth? She'd previously shown that she was who she claimed to be. She was the first person to whom I ever really opened myself, both physically and emotionally. I was absolutely innocent and had a blind optimism and trusting attitude that she effectively abused and has since vanished. I sat her down gently but firmly and asked her if she had anything she needed to tell me. She declined. I inquired if she had ever cheated on me throughout our relationship. She declined. I asked if there was anything she had lied to me about, and if so, to please come clean about it. She said that there was nothing. She pretended to be perplexed that I would even pose these questions, as if there were no legitimate reason for me to question them at all. As she answered each question, I could feel the color drain from my face. I could really feel myself becoming pale. With each response, I realized the person in front of me was someone I had never met before. Finally, the excessively idealized image of her in my imagination was detached from her genuine person. I simply sat there in quiet for a few moments, trying to figure out what was going on and how I was going to continue. I asked her one more pointless inquiry: is there anything more you want to tell me? Anything? Are you certain there isn't anything? No. What is the source of this? Is there a problem? She responded. I was crushed and in a state of shock. She made me play my hand, so I just took a big breath and started reading her letters to each of her guy toys aloud. Even when I read them aloud and glanced over to her for her reaction, she seemed perplexed as to why I was reading them at all and pretended as if nothing was wrong. As if these communications didn't imply anything unusual at all. It was just a routine discussion amongst friends, which was weird to me since I don't recall having any buddies with whom I discussed meeting up for, snuggling, or kissing. Call me crazy, but I don't send nude images of myself to my friends, and they don't send me naked pictures of themselves. The more she pretended to be stupid as I read them, the more enraged I became. My head felt like it was ready to burst. On the exterior, I kept my cool, but on the inside, I was on the edge of going insane. I didn't fall for her deception methods. No, not this time. I knew I had all of the cards. I went through each message, explaining to her, like you would to a kid, what each message meant, why it was bad, and why it suggested she was cheating on me after reading them all out maybe 3 times without her even admitting she had done anything wrong. She was a wise young lady who didn't need me to explain why sending a message indicating plainly that she was going to meet up with someone for was considered cheating. Even still, she would debate with me about each message, striving to downplay its ramifications to the greatest extent possible. She lied, denied, and reduced everything she could. Finally, as I constantly put out my case with each communication, like a lawyer would in court, she realized I wasn't falling for her deceptive techniques. She sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. She was doomed. She said that she felt terrible and guilty about it. She was in such a bad mood. What a helpless victim of this terrible world she was. She said she merely did it to increase her self-esteem. It's not what it seems to be, she said. She had been thinking about informing me for days but didn't want to harm me, so she chose to carry the load as punishment and never tell me. But she also told me she was going to inform me in a few days. Neither example made sense, considering that this was not something that happened in the distant past. It was continually happening, and she denied everything until I physically forced her to admit. Even yet, she reduced as much as she could while admitting. She'd been texting one of her guy toys only 2 days before, while we were both sleeping in the same bed. She said she was only doing it because she suspected I was cheating on her and that she would stop when I did. I asked her what made her believe I was cheating on her and if she had any evidence. Crickets. I was not, have never been, and will never be a cheater. She flung every explanation she could think of in the hopes that one would stick and I'd believe it. She blurted out so many words in her crocodile tears that half of them contradicted one another. I had the impression that I was seeing the unraveling of a whole individual in front of me. A ball of falsehoods packed tightly together, ultimately unraveled by a slack thread. It seemed like I wasn't even looking at a human person anymore, but at some nasty beast trying, but failing, to resemble one. I really considered if she had a personality issue or was a psychopath/sociopath to some extent. It was very strange and distressing to see her unraveling. Throughout our relationship, she did a slew of other heinous things to me. I was young, inexperienced, and caring. Someone like that would be the ideal target for someone like that. I treated her like gold as she emotionally tormented me and love-bombed me until I forgave her. Then do something much worse. Then she will love-bomb me until I forgive her. Then do something much worse. And the cycle would continue until she finally abused me horribly without remorse, ending in her ultimate betrayal. The only reason she tried to demonstrate, fake regret was because I'd had enough of her and her unethical actions. I called it quits. To make matters worse, she informed her family, whom I loved as if they were my own, and for whom I did so much that it would be too long to list in this essay, that I was the one who cheated on her. She had a younger cousin who lived with her family and with whom she was close. I treated her as if she were my own flesh and blood, and I sincerely loved her as if she were my little sister. She is just a kid, so I certainly don't hold anything against her, but when my ex and I split up, she messaged me and sent me really terrible things because she claimed that I was the one who cheated on her. It devastated my already wounded heart. This tiny ball of innocence, whom I loved and cared for, turned against me in the most heinous manner conceivable due to a total misunderstanding of the facts. And I was well aware that she had probably turned the rest of her family against me as well. I wanted to respond back and defend myself, saying that it was her who cheated, but I was so exhausted that I just banned my ex and her whole family on everything and went no contact. I realized it was pointless to attempt to argue with her family members about what had transpired, and I wasn't going to show a kid the filthy things my ex wrote to her APs in order to clear my name in her eyes. I haven't felt human since that day. I'm just in my late 20s, yet I feel like I've been alive for 1,000 years. Every day is a recitation of the same routine. I go about like a zombie, taking care of the tasks that I must like job, but on the inside I am in full pain. I can't recall the last time I awoke with anything other than unpleasant feelings. My self-esteem is close to none. On most days, I actually despise myself. I'm no longer interested in anything. My previous goals and ambitions have all but evaporated. I'm scarcely able to drag myself out of bed. I'm filled with rage like I've never felt before, always bubbling under the surface. My existence is being boiled away. I'm in the worst depression I've ever experienced. I'm plagued with vengeful ideas that I hesitate to act on. I'm having disturbing ideas of committing violent things to myself. I have no desire to do anything violent to myself. I am not suicidal or anything like that, but these movies of me doing something like that play in my brain. I'm not sure how to put that into words. I just have a mental image of myself doing something like that, and I have no desire to really do it. I merely watch it happen, if that makes sense. Almost everything is a direct effect of my connection with my ex. I'm not here to give you advice. Despite her several efforts to win me back and demonstrate how much she really loves me, I have no communication with my ex. I go to the gym and keep myself in good condition. I have many wonderful friends with whom I spend my time, as well as a wonderful family of my own. I don't want to burden them with my suffering. I do my best to put on a brave front while suffering alone. I have a lot of interests as well as a terrific job. But when the hustle ceases, ideas fill my mind like a tsunami. The negativity hangs on me like an anvil around my neck. Edit. To clarify for some, my ex and her family have no contact with anybody in my life. So she isn't going around telling everyone I know that I'm the terrible person. She simply informed her family. Obviously, it still stings after all I've done for them and the love I and her family had, but it has no bearing on my present life/relationships. Everyone who knows me is aware of what occurred. I'm not even sure why I wrote this post. I think I'm simply venting/ranting. It might be tough to keep everything to myself at times. Reading this may help someone who is cheated or is considering cheating appreciate the significance of their acts, if they ever thought such a selfish, cowardly, and despicable thing in the first place. Perhaps one of you has had a similar situation, and we might feel better together as a result of our shared experiences. It's comforting to know that we're not alone in our suffering. That is a natural element of being human. Thank you for taking the time to read this. I apologize for the length, and I don't want to dampen anyone's spirits. I wish you joy and happiness in your life. Be considerate, be truthful, be a person of character. Send forth love, laughter, and smiles, not sorrow, suffering, or pain. Treat people in the same way that you would want to be treated. something we are all taught from an early age, yet many do not seem to understand. Story 2. Wife of 7 years cheated on me. Now everyone in my circle, friends, her parents and my parents are suggesting me to take her back. Don't know what to do. My wife and I met 10 years ago when we were both students at the same institution. We dated for 3 years before marrying after 7 years together. She is a lovely and compassionate lady who is adored by everyone in my family. 4 months after we became aware of the affair, I discovered that my wife was having an affair with a mutual acquaintance of ours. It had been a 1.5-month relationship at the time, and she had been quite shady, ignoring my messages and rejecting me every time I tried to initiate. I got a nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. I looked around but couldn't discover anything, so I hired a private investigator who delivered evidence within a week. The lady in issue was having an adulterous affair with one of our common friends. When I challenged her about it, she admitted to having an adulterous relationship. She immediately fell into tears and pleaded for compassion. They merely go through the motions of a normal cheater when arrested. My requests for all the facts, including a full chronology, were met with hesitation, and she only told me everything at night, owing to her affair on another phone at the time. She told me that she only had 4 sexual encounters with him, and that the rest of the time they were just hanging around and having a wonderful time. More sobbing and self-pitying came 3 days later, as she informed me that she had destroyed all contracts with him and that she would do everything it took to make our marriage succeed, as she promised MC. MC concurred. I told her to leave me alone and that I would not be forced to do anything. The scenario made me feel cheated, embarrassed, and degraded. She relocated to be closer to her parents. After that, she began phoning me every hour, telling me how much she loves me, how much she regrets what she'd done, and how she would do everything to save our marriage. After 2 days of total and full contempt for her, I texted her to let her know we were parting up. My phone began to ring with calls from her parents, sister, and other family members as she fell into a panic and began to have emotional breakdowns. She begs me not to dissolve the marriage and to give her another opportunity. Her affair was made public later that day when she wrote a lengthy Facebook post about how she had screwed up and how she had destroyed her marriage, thus confessing her affair. Despite this, I was secure in my choice. She even insisted on taking a lie detector exam to prove to me that she had never cheated before. I flatly refused. Blah, 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 blah. I asked for some alone time to absorb everything. We've been residing in several locations since then. All of this happened around 4 months ago. Last week, when I filed for divorce, she erupted into tears, begging with me to reconsider and give her another opportunity. After that, she approached my parents and asked them to make an effort to convince me not to file for divorce. They did all they could to encourage me to handle the situation, but they were unsuccessful last night. Also, practically every single one of our mutual friends congratulated and commended her for being so bold as to confess her affair in her Facebook post. In addition, she is concerned about me and feels that I should give her an opportunity to prove herself. She is very sorry for what she has done, and I am on the point of having a nervous breakdown, but I can assure you that she truly regrets her actions. Her dishonesty has caused me the greatest heartbreak of all since I hold her in high regard. I am completely at a loss on what to do. The way someone who is reconnected with their spouse is dealing with life is important to know. Simply an update. First and foremost, I'd want to express my gratitude to each and every one of you. In light of the outpouring of affection I've received over the last 15 hours, I'd want to express my sincere regret for not replying to your comments and private messages more quickly. I'd like to respond to some of the most often asked questions on this website. However, despite the fact that we do not have children at the present time, we plan to have children after the pandemic has passed. In our respective businesses, we are both entrepreneurs who collaborate on initiatives. The last time I communicated with her was almost 3 months ago, and it wasn't for any personal reasons either. The most recent update is given in the section below. In light of your remarks and private communications, I have chosen to call my parents and notify them that I have filed for divorce. A few hours later, she called me, tears in her eyes, begging with me not to end the relationship. It had been a long time since I had seen or talked to her about the affair, and she pushed me to meet up with her in person to talk about it. Every time I talked, I pretended to be completely uninterested in the subject of the affair. She pledged to explain everything to me, that I would be given the opportunity to hear her side of the story, and that any decision I made would be respected by her and her family. The fact that I was completely clueless about what was going on and had no prior knowledge of the affair will make for a satisfying conclusion. As a consequence, I've decided to plan a meeting with her for the following Sunday afternoon. All that has to be stated is that's all there is to it. Everything went well on Sunday afternoon, according to schedule. When I spoke with her, she had a sour tone in her voice. For me, it's the first time in a long time that I've seen her. Our conversation revolved on our relationship, and I requested that she erase her Facebook post, which she graciously agreed to do, and I expressed my gratitude to her for her assistance. I was intrigued by the affair and wanted to learn more about it. What was she thinking when she told me she was dating someone else and then lied to me about it? Afterwards, the woman admitted to me that she had made a mistake and had been extremely self-centered when the event occurred. She didn't blame me for the affair, which I thought was kind of her on my part. I asked her why he was boasting about his adulterous behaviors, and she said that they were merely having a casual conversation about it. She then gave me with text conversations from both of them, in which he was talking about his intriguing life outside of marriage. As a result of her expression of interest, a series of events unfolded one after the other, one after the other. His messages to my wife throughout the relationship were filled with detailed instructions on how to conceal the relationship's existence. He recommends that she get a backup phone and keep it in her vehicle at all times, just in case. I took screenshots of everything I could locate in order to keep my evidence safe and secure. She quickly pleaded for forgiveness, which I readily accepted, but I couldn't get rid of the horrible sensation I was experiencing. Divorce has always been the first and most apparent choice for me, and it continues to be the case now. She asked me to enroll her in one of the several marital counseling programs available. She has made it clear that she would never date anybody else again after this experience. Unless she changes her mind, I'll be held accountable for her actions. It doesn't cause me any concern at all. We want to continue our collaborative efforts in the future. We did this since it was a project that both of us had intended to work on together, so it made sense. Permit us to suppose that our common friend's wife and him have decided to get back together, according to the most recent information I've been provided with, due to the fact that children were involved. My sympathies go out to his wife, who had no idea what type of monster he was until he made himself known to her. I'm sorry for what happened to her. As a result, we've reached a point where we must split ways, and I've made a pledge to myself that I will never be involved in another romantic relationship. My life is falling apart, and 3 days after I informed her of my choice, she ingested fennel. She was fortunately spared and is currently receiving therapy. I pay her a daily visit to see how she is and if she needs anything. I'm in a bad mood and feeling a lot of guilt. We've decided that we need to reconcile and work on our relationship. She would be fully healed in a month. In addition, I need to leave the nation to start a new life. Everyone in our buddy circle has referred to me as heartless in the last 2 weeks. My 2 best pals were the only ones who stayed by my side throughout this trying period. I'm very thankful to have them in my life. My parents were furious with me since I was the one who drove her to commit suicide. I also discovered that both of my parents were adulterers, which surprised me. My father was the first to cheat on my mother, and he was also the first to confess. My mother then set out on a vengeance-seeking mission. That explains a lot about why they were so encouraging of my wife. I adore my wife, and the thought of her causing herself pain makes me sick to my stomach. I anticipated that the divorce would be the start of a new chapter in our life, and that we would be able to move on from it. However, things did not turn out the way we had intended. She still has a strong desire to remain with me in our marriage. When I originally contacted you regarding this matter, you were quite kind and helpful.